Okay, I want you to look around you right now. Literally just take a second. The room you're in, the screen you're looking at, the sounds you're hearing, where does all of this actually exist? Like, is the world out there completely separate from you, or is it entirely constructed inside your head? I know, it's a pretty provocative question, but if you really stop to think about it, everything you have ever experienced has had to pass through the filter of your own mind. Today, we're going to completely challenge your fundamental perception of reality. We're looking at an ancient text that honestly flips our understanding of the world completely upside down.
All right, let's dive right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're decoding the Saḻāyatanavagga. Now listen, I don't want you to look at this as just some dusty ancient Buddhist scripture, okay? Scratch that idea. Instead, academics and scholars are increasingly looking at this exact text as an incredibly relevant, highly systematic psychological manual for the human mind. It is this brilliant piece of phenomenology that dissects exactly how we experience the world, and honestly, more importantly, why we get so totally overwhelmed by it. So, here's our blueprint for today's explainer. We're going to hit 5 key areas. First, the manual of the mind. Second, defining the entire world. Third, the circuit of suffering. Fourth, case studies in control. And finally, number 5, the ultimate circuit breaker. Let's get right to it.
Starting with Section 1, the Manual of the Mind, which is found in Volume 10 of the Sutta Piṭaka.
You know, the Saḷāyatanavagga isn't just a quick little essay. It's actually a massive collection. We're talking over 420 specific discourses, with this absolutely brilliant architecture of thought. It's divided into 10 main sections. It covers everything from the Saḷāyatana, which is the 6 senses, and then moves into Vedana, or feeling. It goes all the way up to asankata, which is nirvana, and even avyakata. These are the metaphysical questions the Buddha literally intentionally left unanswered. Scholars point out that the structure of this text is 100% deliberate. It's categorized so carefully to help us deeply understand human perception first, before we even attempt to achieve any sort of spiritual liberation. Basically, you got to understand how the machine works before you can fix it, right?
Moving on to Section 2, defining the entire world, specifically looking at the Sabbha Sutta.
Now, what's really interesting here is how it defines the absolute limits of reality. The text introduces this concept called ayatana, or the sense bases, and there are 6 of them: your eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and, critically here, the mind. These pair up with their corresponding external objects, so sights, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, and mental phenomena. According to this text, the entire world you know, what they call the all, is solely and completely constructed through these 6 sensory inputs. That is it. There's literally no world for you outside of this specific framework.
So, perceived reality is the only reality. This is a deeply phenomenological approach. It's actually incredibly similar to modern Western philosophy and cognitive science. The Buddha is essentially treating the human mind like a technological system, electrical inputs and receivers. Everything you think of as reality is really just data hitting these 6 specific channels. If the data isn't hitting those receivers, well, it doesn't exist in your universe.
Which brings us to Section 3, the circuit of suffering.
Or, as I like to think of it, system overload.
Okay, so if we're all just walking systems of sensory receivers, what exactly goes wrong? Well, going back to our tech analogy, we suffer a massive, daily, emotional overload. And this brings us to this really profound quote from the Adita Sutta, which is famously known as the fire sermon. It says, "The senses are burning with the fire of greed, hatred, and delusion." It's a super powerful image, but the crucial point here is that these fires they're talking about, they aren't physical flames. They're the psychological fires of a sensory circuit that is just constantly, relentlessly overloaded. Every single time we see, hear, or think something, if we aren't careful, it sparks a psychological fire.
And the text actually outlines exactly how this fire starts through the principle of dependent origination. It's this undeniable 3-step sequence. Step 1 is contact, or phassa. That's the sensory spark, when an object hits your sense base. Step 2 is feeling, or vedana. That's when you register the spark as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And then comes Step 3, craving, or tanha. If you aren't being mindful, that feeling erupts into craving. You desperately want more of the good stuff, and you want to push away all the bad stuff. Boom! You're now caught in the circuit of suffering, totally at the mercy of your sensory inputs.
Let's move to Section 4 to see how this builds. Case studies in control, where we're stress testing the system.
The coolest part is that the text doesn't just leave us hanging with abstract theory. It actually stress tests this psychological system against some incredibly extreme, real-world situations.
We see three main case studies. First, the Channa Sutta. Channa was a monk who was severely ill and made the ultimate choice to end his own life. Yet the Buddha assessed that he did so blamelessly because his mind was entirely free from attachment. This shows the system prioritizes pure intention over the outward action itself. Next, we have the Punna Sutta. Punna volunteered to teach in a land known for, quite frankly, violent, hostile people. But even facing abuse or the threat of death, he maintained total control over his sensory reactions. He refused to let the input of hostility generate an output of anger. And finally, the Talaputta Sutta, which deals with something that sounds surprisingly modern, the entertainment industry.
Let's actually zoom in on that last one, the Talaputta Sutta, because it is so relevant to us today. So you have the worldview of this actor Talaputta, who firmly believed that making people laugh and entertaining them was a virtuous act that led straight to heaven. But the Buddha offered a pretty stark, impartial warning here. He pointed out that intoxicating the mind through entertainment, deliberately stimulating greed, anger, or delusion just for fun, actually just throws gasoline on those sensory fires we talked about earlier. It's a genuinely fascinating critique of what we might call our modern culture of emotional addiction.
So, how do we fix it? That's Section 5, the ultimate circuit breaker, stopping the cycle.
This is the absolutely crucial point. How on earth do we stop this cycle when we're bombarded by sensory data, entertainment, and stress literally every single day? Well, the manual gives us a specific tool. It's called Indriya Samvara. This is the practice of sense restraint. It basically means diligently guarding your sense doors against unchecked reactions. It's the precise mechanism for making sure that a sensory spark, like, say, a sound you hear or a frustrating comment you read online, doesn't turn into a raging psychological fire.
So how do you actually do Indriya Samvara? It's done through vipassana, or insight meditation. The practical applications listed here are essentially your circuit breakers. First up, you observe inputs without reacting to them. You just watch the data come in. Second, you understand that all inputs are impermanent. They arise, and then they fade away. And third, you use this observation to dismantle the illusion of the self. You start to realize that you are not your anger, you are not your craving. Those are just automated responses firing off in your sensory circuitry.
And that brings us to the ultimate goal of the Saḷāyatanavagga, vimutti. By deeply understanding this manual of the mind, by seeing these sensory inputs for what they truly are, which is just impermanent data points, the mind naturally drops its attachments. You just stop grasping, you stop burning, and ultimately you achieve complete psychological freedom, absolute liberation from the cycle of suffering.
Which leaves us with one final thought based on everything we've looked at today. Every single day, your six senses are absolutely flooded with data designed to pull your attention and spark a reaction. So here's the question. Will you continue to let your senses blindly control you, or is it time to practice a little sense restraint and take back the circuit board of your mind? Really think about that the next time you find yourself blindly reacting to a sensory input. Thanks for joining this explainer.